movies by Gurvinder Chadda and Suhashini Maniratnam. It is a great pleasure for us to have her here. And this is the only academic institute that she is visiting in India during this short trip. She's coming here from the Jaipur Literature Festival, the biggest literature festival in Asia. And may I request Professor Jain to kindly welcome her. Sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for us to invite and to have Professor Chitra here. We are having her visit at a very interesting juncture in this institute. We are discussing right now the new curriculum, and there is a lot of debate how much humanities should be taught and how important is humanities for education of engineers. And there are very strong discussions within the faculty this way or that way. And normally, as a director, you should be neutral and you should let the debate settle, and you should be peacemaker. But in this case, I have chosen to be on one side and not on the other side. And let me just tell you a very quick story, especially because I get an audience of such a size. If I were to address them, they won't come to me. So please, the story is that India had this engineering colleges, at the time of independence. Roorkee had Thompson College, and Pune had this College of Engineering, and VJTI in Bombay, and there was this Guindy Engineering College in Madras. So there are these 4 or 5 very famous colleges that they were there. And I know for sure about Roorkee, I don't know about others. Roorkee was not giving a degree. They were giving a diploma of being an overseer, and they were giving civil engineer as a certificate. It is like I am in Ahmedabad. They cannot give a degree. They give a postgraduate diploma in management, and everybody treats it to be better than most degrees. So Nehru, after independence, decided that Roorkee should become a university. And government has a tremendous might, and government decided that Thompson College will become a university. And they brought a British engineer to become the first vice chancellor, Dr. Hart. When Roorkee applied to be a member of the Indian Association of Universities, the president of the Indian Association of Universities said, university means universe. And how can an engineering college be a university? And there was a big discussion that you cannot have Roorkee enter into this. But since government has done it, it's a fait accompli. We are willing to accept it, but we are warning, advising, guiding, indicating, requesting government of India not to do such stupid things in future, right? Of course, we continue to do what we like, and we have now so-called technological universities and this universities and that universities. Everybody and anybody now likes to write the word university, but that is what the original definition of university is. So if IIT Gandhinagar has to have the ambition of being a university, I think we must celebrate humanities as much as we celebrate engineering. And it is that in that context that we are extremely excited to have you here, madam. Thank you very much for being with us.
Dr. Jain, for that very warm welcome, and thanks to IIT Gandhinagar for inviting me to come and speak. This is my first talk at an IIT, and I'm very pleased and excited to be with all of you. And I know that, that this is actually a very pleasant and unexpected event. Just a few months back, when US President Obama was visiting India, the New York Times contacted me, and they said that if you had a choice of telling President Obama one thing that he should do while he's in India, what would you ask him to do? And they said, write an article on this. And so at that time, I wrote an article saying that President Obama should come and visit an IIT, because I felt that the quality of education and the quality of students and faculty and just the whole setup of the IIT would be very wonderful for President Obama to see. And now, just by unexpected chance, here I am visiting an IIT, and I'm very happy and excited to do that. It's also a pleasure to have been invited by my once upon a time student, Professor Lahiri, and it's wonderful to see her here. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I became a writer, and then read to you a little bit from my latest book, which is my 16th book. It's a novel titled One Amazing Thing. So when I stand in front of an audience to talk about my writing, I'm always surprised, in some ways, amazed that that's what I'm doing, because all of my years when I was growing up in India, and in fact several years after I went abroad to do my graduate studies in the United States, I never thought I would become a writer. It was only after I'd finished all of my formal education and I'd received my PhD from Berkeley and actually started teaching at the university, and I was teaching literature. That was when I started to write. And so sometimes I think back on what it is that made me into a writer. I think it was a combination of various things. But one of them was that it was actually a tragedy in my life that made me want to write. And what happened was that my grandfather, whom I'd been very close to while I was in India, passed away while I was going to school at Berkeley. And I was almost finishing up. I couldn't afford to come back for his funeral, but that made me very sad because he had been very close to me. He had been one of the first storytellers in my life. When I was little, I would go and spend, as I'm sure many of you do, I'd go and spend vacations with him. And he would tell me these wonderful stories out of the Bengal folk tales. I come from Bengal, so he would tell me the stories of the folk tales of Bengal, and he would tell me stories out of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and all of these wonderful fairy tales. And I think somewhere that left an impression on me. So a few days after his funeral, I was in Berkeley and I was lying in bed and I was thinking about my grandfather. And I closed my eyes and I tried to imagine his face, the way we do with the people we love. And I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't visualize his face. And I was really shocked because I realized something. I realized that he was this person who meant a lot to me, and I was forgetting him. As I was getting more and more busy and more involved with my everyday life in the United States, I was forgetting important things about India, about people and places and my experiences growing up. I was forgetting how people thought and spoke and behaved, and I didn't want to lose it. I knew that that was a big part of who I was. And so I thought I'll start writing about it. Because if I write about it, then at least it'll be an action against forgetting. As we write things, we preserve them. And so I started writing really very, very much just for myself. I was a closet writer for many years. And actually, I wasn't any sure that the little stories and poems that I was writing or the little memory recollections I was writing would be of interest to anyone. And I didn't know if they were any good. In fact, I was worried that they weren't very good. But since I was writing for myself, that was okay. Now, what I did realize after some years when I went back and looked at my work is that actually my early work was very bad. And this is true, I'm not making this up. But I like to share this because sometimes people think that if you see a successful writer, they must have been very good at writing right from day one. But I like to remind students that in my case, at least, that was not so. But what was true is that, and this is what I tell my students too, if one is really passionate about writing and communicating, and you keep working at it, and maybe you take some courses or you join a writer's group and you get some good feedback, and you revise and you revise and you make things better, then you do become a better writer. And that was certainly true in my case. So I went through a period of being a bad writer, and then I did join a writer's group, and I started getting feedback on my work and changing it, making it better. And then I started publishing, and so in that way, I became a writer. And what were some of the things I was writing about? I was, of course, writing about India. A number of my books, such as the novel Sister of My Heart, is set in my native town of Calcutta, my native city of Kolkata. And it's Sister of My Heart is set in a very traditional Bengali family where these two girls who are cousins grow up. And it's about their many adventures as they're growing up and as they get married and one of them comes to the United States. So the other subject that I often explore is that of immigration. Because in my life particularly, and I think by talking to many people in our Indian American community over there, I realized